worsen this problem.
Ang World Bank na nagpalabas nitong datos na ito, hindi sumusunod sa protocol. Kasi kung mag-report ka about a country, the country was insulted, was shamed, and so on. So tingin ko, apology muna. Kasi pinadalahan ako ng sulat, personal apology. But hindi naman ako ang natatamaan dito. Ang natatamaan ang bansa at publiko.
Education Secretary Briones has demanded for a public apology from the World Bank for its report that is giving the Philippines a poor ranking in education. Regardless of any such apology, how should government address the gaps in our education system? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. Ako po si Robbie Elampay, and with us online are Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star and Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5 Chiefs.
Hi.
Good evening, Robbie.
Good evening. Ami, what are we looking at?
Well, nag-suspende several cities in Metro Manila and including Cebu City, suspended their vaccination right dahil sa ating vaccine. Puro second dose na ang kaya nila ngayon.
And in the meantime,
no?
in the meantime, in other news, na-recover na yung black box doon sa nag-crash na C-130. Pero hindi pa rin natin alam kung ano yung nandun, ano?
Ay, syempre, matagal na basahan ng data yan, di ba? I mean, I'm sure. At saka, alam ko, may international protocol around aircraft accident investigations. It's not just the military that will look into the black box. Pati yung manufacturer niyan, di ba, titingnan din.
No, totoo.
So,
kausap ko kanina si AFP Chief of Staff General Sobihana, and that's exactly what he was saying. Sabi niya nga, it's not even up to us to open it. Kailangan ipadala sa United States. Pasaantayin pa natin bumalik before we find out. In any case, that's just a quick wrap-up of some of the stories. Abangan nyo po yan sa News 5, sa One News, lalo-lalo na sa Philippine Star. For now, let's begin with one of our topics. We'll talk about the education system later, but our first guest is actually retired Supreme Court Justice Francis Hardelesa. Good evening, Justice Hardelesa.
Good evening, Justice. Welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening.
And sir, Justice, we invited you because in recent days, we've been talking about the Hague ruling. And unfortunately, not just the Hague ruling, we've been talking about the team that stood for the Philippines in that ruling. It's one thing for Justice Carpio to have written about divides and differences in opinions, differences in strategy in 2016 or during that time. But it's another thing to see that team. Apparently, I don't know if how you would characterize the debate arising from that column from Justice Carpio. Your thoughts, sir? I mean, and from your vantage, because after magsulat ni Justice Carpio, sinagot siya ni Florin Hilbay. But from where you stood, sir, I mean, what was your version and what is your vantage into these differences?
Well, good evening. Ang vantage namin dito is kasama ko si Florin Hilbay because I was the first Solicitor General that handled the case. And when I went to the Supreme Court, Florin Hilbay took over. But we are one with Florin Hilbay. It is unfortunate that somebody has written, and I quote, about the team being bitterly divided. No? And you know, it's not so much the criticism. It is that ito po sinulat nung kamamatay lang ng tao eh. That he's not here anymore to dispute you know, things like the team, his closest advisors were bitterly divided. the two factions fought from the beginning to the end. Tinatanong mo, kami po na kasama sa team, it's totally untrue. Totally untrue. Hindi, it's totally untrue na we were bitterly divided, that there were two factions that we fought from beginning to end.
See, Soldier... Yeah,
Go ahead, Lucy. Go ahead, Lucy.
Of course, Soljan Hilbay echoes what you just said, no? And as far as he's concerned, actually, the status of Associate Justice Carpio was no more than an observer. And that he was saying, in effect, that he wasn't even really technically a part of the team. Is that something that you would backstop? Is that accurate?
That's very accurate, 100% Luchi. And I don't, when you say, pag ginamit mo kasing kataga na echo, parang ano lang, but it's true. What Florine Hilbay said is 100% true. I stand by everything that he said. The other guy was not a member at all of the team.
So, yes. So there was no, of course, I'm sorry to have to bring this up, no, but Soljan Hilbay was also saying that there may have been a personal bias against you on the part of Justice Carpio because he had actually turned down your nomination as Justice of the Supreme Court. Was that a factor that played into, what Associate Justice Carpio is probably alleging now?
Well, I cannot say anything about that. That's for Justice Carpio to answer. No?
But is it true that you had did you feel the bias against you?
Well, I will not say biased. He did what he did. I felt very bad about it. It's not a joke to be opposed, no? To be opposed by somebody from the same school. We were together 2 years at the same class. So I felt very bad about it. But let other people characterize what happened, no?
Justice Justice Carpio also said his name was struck out of the list of the delegation of the Philippines. It was only put back in, according to him, when then Secretary Albert Del Rosario said he would not proceed without Justice Carpio. Is this true as well? Would you know about it?
I do not know if what he said is true. Okay, this is what I knew. That Florine Hilbay went to me and asked Chief, kasi Chief ang tawag sa Soljan, Chief, sabi niya, pwede bang kung kasama si Justice Carpio ay you can have just some peace, okay? Well, I told him but that he went, there was a meeting of the Malacanang functionaries, but I was already in the Supreme Court. And when I learned that Justice Carpio was going to the Hague, I objected. I said, number one, why should we have somebody who fought me? Okay. Number two, sabi ko, ano naman na ma-contribute niya? Because I was being asked to join because I was the soldier for the first part, no? So I have what you call institutional memory. Now, but nung nakiusap si Florine, he said, Chief, pwede ba maraming problema, ganito. And then he said, well, he uses the word now social distancing, but it was not in vogue then. And I said, yes, sabi ko, for the sake of the country, sabi ko kung that's your call. So those are what I know. I do not know whether his name was struck out. I do not know whether the Secretary Del Rosario threatened. I do not know these things.
Beyond that, sir, right, let's get into what was supposedly a matter of contention. First of all, sir, is it the characterization of differences as bitterly divided that you're objecting to? I imagine there must have been differences in opinion and differences in strategy, especially at the very start. Is that the case? And is it in that case, is it just a characterization of a bitterly divided team that you're objecting to?
Well, it makes a lot of a difference how you characterize it. Of course, there is always differences of opinion, but I'll take the matter of arbitration. Okay, it was Justice Carpio who had this opinion about, he said conciliation. Now, I tell you now, all of us in the team were for arbitration. The Secretary Del Rosario and his two lawyers were for arbitration. So conciliation was not even taken up in the meetings we had. I think we had five meetings in Washington D.C. and sometimes in New York. So I take strong exceptions. Not bitterly divided. We were not divided on the issue of arbitration.
What was there a difference? Si Soljan Hilbay referred to the issue of joint exploration, and that you as a team were really intent on not even allowing that in the final decision or arbitral case that you were presenting at The Hague. But it was, Justice Carpio was of a different opinion. How true is that?
Ang joint exploration is a term that is used with reference to oil and gas, no?
Right.
To explore for oil and gas. Ang nangyari diyan, Lutzi, is towards the end, at the last hearings, okay, I got a call from Soljan Hilbay, and he said, look at this, because I was vetting also the speeches of those who were going to speak, no? And he said, can you look at this this speech of one of our speakers? And it said there, it was a giveaway, something like, kung marapatin ng tribunal na ang Ito Aba ay may 200 miles, okay lang, something like that. We can go into joint development. Umalma kaagad si Hilbay, and he said, this cannot be. Okay, and I supported him. It was a tactical move. Na kasi napakahina ng presentasyon mo kung so umpisa pa lang sinabi mo nang, but just in case you declare that is the bone of contention, and I supported Hilbay 100% on that.
Yeah, but the whole team, what about the rest of the team? Were they supportive of it as well?
No,
Because
I can tell you, Logic, it was Reichler. He was writing the speeches for everybody. Okay, and we objected. Now, I can tell you now, si Secretary Del Rosario was not, he sided with Reichler, pwede na. And then we objected kasi we said, no, it cannot be done. It cannot be done. We have to bring this up to Malacanang kung kailangan. Kasi how can you have a case na parang sa get-go pa lang, talo ka na eh. You are telegraphing in effect na pwede tayong matalo sa Ito Aba.
Yung pong sa Ito Aba, I just want to be clear on Ito Aba because this is one of the prominent things that was brought up. Without necessarily having to go into the details there, I'm sure that will take, and everything you presented will take two, three episodes, maybe even more. But the whole point about Ito Aba is you're saying, let's not bring that up, kasi parang sigurista yung position natin sa Ito Aba. In other words, kung matalo, then meron tayong ready when it comes to Ito Aba and joint exploration. And you're saying that the whole fundamental problem there is that proceeds and is opening up a position of weakness on our part. And therefore, dun yung debate doon.
No. I might clarify. The previous discussion natin with Lucci on opening weekly has to do with joint exploration. Iba ang kwento ng Ito Aba.
Ito Aba.
Ang Ito Aba, at the start, sa umpisada, we did not bring up Ito Aba in the complaint. Okay. So, ang tanong, bakit hindi nyo dinulog ang question ng Ito Aba. Okay, I will tell you, none of us thought of bringing up Ito Aba. Not Reichler, not the OSG lawyers, not the lawyers of Secretary Del Rosario. Okay, so umpisa.
So you're saying it's not true that Paul Reichler wanted to include Ito Aba kasi yun ang sinasabi ni Justice Carter that he wanted, Reichler daw wanted. So it's not true.
What is true, Ami, is that final namin ang complaint natin January 2013. And then I have on record a speech of Justice Carpio to the Philippine Law Journal loading. He was loading the complaint for being magaling. Okay. Hindi kasamang Ito Aba doon. Okay. When did Ito Aba start to rear its head? Okay. Towards the January yun, umpisa na, gumawa na kayo ng memorial, ang tawag dyan. I think towards October, towards the end of the year, I started to get communications from Reichler na sabi niya, we have to amend the complaint to include two features. One is Ayungin Shoal, the other is Ito Aba. No, yung Ayungin, wala akong problema kasi this was where Chinese attempted to interfere with our provisioning of the Marines there, no? Now, but Ito Aba, I said, what's with Ito Aba? Bakit natin i-include ito? Okay, and then he started saying, hindi ko talaga maintindihan as a lawyer kung bakit, short of saying na, bakit nakalimutan mo ba ito? I did not say it, of course, like that. Okay, now, but what happened was, there is this German lawyer na si Salmon who came up with a book. I think that is what happened. Alam mo, ang mga abogado natin sa Inglaterra, there's a very small group of lawyers there. And then what happened was, ito palang German lawyer who, in my view, was hired by China. Of course, he denies it. He started arguing that Ito Aba being the biggest feature in the South China Sea, you cannot have a case without Ito Aba. Okay. So that is the question is, shall we amend the complaint to include Ito Aba? Okay. Now, but I stress that sa umpisa, walang kaluluwa sa Pilipinas o sa Amerika na nakatambal natin. Call our attention to it. Now, do we amend the complaint to include Ito Aba? What was the chief objection that we had? The OSG lawyers had, and the lawyers of the office of the president had. Okay. The facts were not clear to us. Now, ang sa UNCLOS, may distinction between an island, for example, Luzon is an island, and a rock, bato. Bato, ang best example of a rock is Baho de Masinloc. These are just rocks. No? These are protrusions in the water. These are rocks. Okay. Yeah. The basic definition is if it is an island, it can sustain economic life on its own. It can sustain economic life on its own. Now, that is interpreted to mean there is water. May tubig na may inom kasi without water you cannot live. Okay. So the question is, does Ito Aba is bigger? Ito Aba, by the way, is bigger than our Pag-asa, huh? Okay. And Ito Aba was garrisoned by the Taiwanese since I think before the Second World War. And they had the garrison there. It's provision from the outside, no? So the question is there water in Ito Aba? And there's some journals saying na may couple of wells, but nobody knew did the wells produce natural water. So that was the state of That was where we were. Now, ang question is, itataya mo ba na will you go to court saying na it is not an island? Na without knowing what is in the wells
Exactly.
there. Now, you know what's the significance of Ito Aba? Ito Aba, if it is declared an island, will have 200 miles
Yeah.
short of
It extended,
Palawan.
yeah.
It's almost will hit Palawan. Now, the in the language of then presidential assistant, no, ngayon is now ay Sandigan Bayan Justice, si Justice Mike Miguel Musme. You know, if had Ito Abad been declared an island and with the 200 miles, the next morning you will see the aircraft carrier of China parked alongside Palawan. That is the significance. So,
Okay. Yeah.
napaka-importante. So
Okay.
the question is, do we amend it to include Ito Abag? Those are the stakes.
Okay. Now,
So, ang sagot
Ang
namin,
naging ano nyo, yeah.
ang sagot
decision,
namin, no, because
Wag na lang.
wag na. And because in the first place, hindi mo naman sinama. Now, Lucci, may risk kasi kung yung sa husgado, di mag-file ka ng complaint, di ba? May sagot ang kabila. Now, if you amend the complaint,
Oo.
yeah, the court can ask you,
Yeah.
bakit ka nag-amyenda?
Nagbabago. Yes.
Bakit ka nagbabago? Kung ang pagbabago na inaasam-asam mo ay so-called substantial, pwede niyang ibasura ang complaint mo.
Yes.
So
Right.
what were we going to say? Now, ang nangyari diyan, and then this is again one of the big holes in the account of Justice Carpio. Because of that issue of Reichler, I was the one who called Reichler to Manila. Because nagpadala ako ng abogado, hindi siya nagpadala kami ng NAMRIA. So I said, pumunta ka nga sa Pilipinas. Okay. So he came to the Philippines, I think it was towards December. Okay. And so in fact, when he came to Manila, I thought I was up for a fight because the two lawyers of Secretary Del Rosario were arguing amend. Okay. So we had a all hands on deck meeting in Malacanang, not in the presidential palace, but in the isang building. I was there, OSG. Si Executive Secretary was not there, but Mike Musngi was there, Justice now, Kagiwa was there, Justice, sa Energy, okay? And then Reichler was there, precisely to debate the question. And then, yun na nga, nag-umpisa si Attorney Bensurto, he was arguing to amend. Nung dumating si Secretary Del Rosario, he said, no, we do not amend because it is too risky. That is a direct quote na sinabi ni Secretary Del Rosario, that is too risky, too risky. And then the debate stopped. Okay. And so I think I forget na the details, but in the after lunch we went to the office of Ochoa. I reported ganito ang nangyari. The decision is do not amend. So nakisuyo ako kay Secretary Ochoa. Pwede bang si Reichler ay maka-make ng meet and greet sa presidente? So sabi niya, sige subukan. So nagantay kami, nanood kami ng mga sapatos doon sa museum, hanggang gabi na. Sabi niya, I'm sorry pare, I cannot squeeze you in, okay? Then we went to a dinner, yun, kasama si Justice Carpio. So that is what happened. So may,
Yes.
now alam niyo na kung ano nangyari.
Yeah, sir, I mean, Yes, I mean, this gives us a lot of really important insights. A lot of people are seizing on this. One, people are viewing this debate at this point in time as sad, unfortunate. You've said it is disrespectful nga to the legacy and the memory of President Aquino. But beyond characterizing it as sad and unfortunate and maybe disrespectful, do any of these details have any bearing on the actual legacy of Pinoy, on the actual decision? Is there any risk that this opens up for our position and, for that matter, our win in the arbitral ruling?
Well, to me, that is why I got so heated up about this article is biro mo ang pinapalabas na si President Aquino parang walang alam na parang his people were fighting and then here comes somebody because he intervened, everything became okay. That's my beef. I said tama si Soldier Hilbay. Alam mo, the conduct of foreign affairs is the chief architect. Ang presidente lang. I grant naman to the president na he knew what he was doing. Of course, we had some small differences of opinion, but I think sobra naman itong article na parang they were fighting ano daw, and then parang siya lang ang pumasok, and then because pumasok siya, everything became hunky-dory. That's not fair. So it's very important. Ako, sabihin nyo na, tao ako ni Pinoy. But ang sa lugar, ang tama. Ganun lang, ano ko.
Justice,
so it is very important.
There's a related issue, no? Well, recently you've been pushing for President Duterte to pass the bill, to amend the baseline law ahead of ISONA, so we can better enforce the ruling of the arbitral court. Can you expound more on your suggestion?
Yes, Ami, kasi we won the tribunal award, no? What we won is that hindi yon territory. Let's say it's about the waters lang. Okay, so 200 miles. See, the problem with the win is we have 200 miles na nautical miles. Ano ba ito? EEC. No. What happens now to the pockets? For example, Pag-asa. The ruling says Pag-asa is just a wrap. Therefore, it's just entitled to 12 nautical miles. Now, the Republic Act does not specify the measurements, no? the meets and bounds of Pag-asa. Okay, so if you are a Coast Guard personnel, and now they're fielding women, no, to show off the other countries. How do you know that you are within 12 nautical miles of Pag-asa, for example? And there are so many small rocks there. Kasi the ruling is the whole South China Sea, wala nang islands doon. So lahat are at most itong tawag rocks. Even most of the features there are underwater. Walang measurements yan. So
you're saying to identify the features. Ganun mo ba?
Yes. The features are identified, may pangalan ng features. Ngayon, to make the measure. For example, Pag-asa is identified.
Yes.
But yung 12 nautical miles around Pag-asa, hindi yun.
I-define mo.
Yes,
parang
kasi may longitude,
yes, latitude, longitude. Yes. But of course, again, si Justice Carpio says that this law is it's not practical because it will take a long time now to actually amend the law, and that there are certain geologic features now, sir, na nag-iiba-iba pag high tide and low tide, and so it will take a long time to establish whether to decide whether or not those features are valid as features, no? What's your take on that?
My take on that is let's ask Namria, because Namria can easily tell us what the longitude and of these features are. They can tell you in an instant. It will not take years. And so ang sinasabi ko, if you are the female adjutant of the Coast Guard, and you go on a megaphone and you try to tell the Chinese vessel, umalis kayo diyan. Ano naman pinaghahawakan mo? Okay, number two, that thing na because of climate change, this might change. I think kung ano, wala ka ng baseline slow. Kasi in 1,000 years, baka magpalit. Now,
Yeah.
Justice Carpio, of course, has championed other measures. He has championed, for example, going to the ICC, International Criminal Court, to
Yes.
jail Xi Jinping. Now, is that what he is saying? That's the more practical. Is that it? Kasi, actually, as he has a book, he has around 10 or 12 mga panukala, ganon. Ako, isa lang, ang sa akin, ito lang. Now, I'm not saying na ako ang tama, but pag-usapan lang. So, balik ako sa ICC suit. Is that the most practical way? Of course, it will not cost us anything. Kung manalo tayo, di sikat tayo. You tell China, you pay billions upon billions. So, now, is that the way to go? Or itong you go to the UN, okay, UN, okay. Alam mo naman may veto power si China doon. Now, alam mo kung minsan now itong let us call ASEAN, let us call, alam mo nung nagdulog tayo ng kaso, narinig ko na yan, we everybody should join us. You know what? Nung final na ang kaso, ay naku, nag-iisa tayo doon sa Hague. Wala tayong kakampi. By our lonesome, we spent for it, we argued it. Yung US, they did not even, our neighboring countries were there as observers. Of course, they're very nice. They will say, magkita kayo sa lunchroom, they're very nice, ganon. But
I hope you're not saying, Justice, that I hope you're not admitting that the arbitral win is just a scrap of paper.
No, by no means.
Yeah, because,
it is not a mere scrap of paper. That is why the way to enforce it is now to specify in our law. Okay.
Baseline law.
The baseline law. It's a small step. It can be done. Pilipino lang ang gagawa noon. We are not going outside. We are not sabi na we will lead the other countries yung ganon. Let them do that. But ito lang, maliit lang na bagay.
In the absence of a law, will a presidential proclamation work? An executive order?
No. In international law, you need effectivity. You need a law to do it. You need a law.
Okay. Justice Hardelesa, maraming salamat po for all your time.
thank you, Justice.
Maraming salamat
Thank you.
Former Associate Justice Francis Hardelesa. We are open to guesting those who are involved in the issues raised by Justice Hardelesa. Justice Carpio has already agreed to an interview with us this Friday, July 9, so please watch out for that. In the meantime, stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back to Chiefs here on One News. Now joining us is ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro. Good evening, Congresswoman Castro.
Good evening, Congresswoman.
Good evening, Roby, Ami, and Luchi.
Ma'am, of course, we invited you because the World Bank came out with a report, not very flattering, dismaying to a lot of people looking at, according to that report, the state of education in the Philippines. Our Department of Education, our Education Secretary is demanding an apology. But from where you sit, what's fair to say about our education system right now?
The report for us is not surprising, Roby. In fact, we are expecting that. And also, we had a House resolution investigating or have an inquiry about the state of K-12 in the House of Representatives. So we filed that since the 17th Congress. And also, we also filed the House resolution inquiry on the why we are low in PISA and TEAMS tests just recently. What is the state of our educational system? Well, sabi nga natin, so we are on the dismal state dahil nga because of those findings and also the situation of our educational system. So,
But to be sure, hindi naman to ngayon lang, hindi ba?
yes, so in fact, the findings was in 2018 and 2019.
So this was pre-pandemic kung tutuusin, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, but so and also to be fair also to the administration, no? Hindi rin naman masasabing nung panahon nung dating mga administrasyon napakahusay na ng matagal ng sakit ng educational system ito, no? It's been deteriorating over the years with teachers going away, alam na natin yan, no? So, how do you assess our education in the background of this kind of recent history and record?
Yes, you're right, Luchi, no? Hindi lang naman ito ngayong administration na to. In fact, even in the administration of former President Aquino, sinasabi na natin yan, yung problema natin sa mga curriculum. For example, sa K-12, kami ay talagang tinututulan namin itong K-12. Ako, for example, teacher sa mathematics. So, yung halimbawa, yung sa science and math. So, ibinalik ulit yung spiral mode of teaching nung math and science, parang chop suey method of of teaching. Kaya nga sabi na natin parang hindi ito appropriate dahil we found out before the K-12, before the the SEDP, halimbawa ay talagang spiral method ay hindi naging effective. So, yan lang yung yung isa natin nakikitang isang problema natin doon sa curriculum. Another thing ay yung
Ano ba yung spiral?
Ano po ba yung spiral? Mahina na kami sa hindi pa namin alam yan.
Teaching method ba yan? Ano ba yan?
Pag sinabi nating spiral, parang chop suey method, a little of everything. For example, siguro familiar kayo doon sa nung panahon natin, first year arithmetic, second year algebra, third year geometry, may mga trigonometry.
Yes.
Pero ang ginawa ngayon, parang a little of everything. So, first year, may konting algebra, may konting geometry, may konting trigo, may konting may ganon. Tapos, tapos lang siya, nag-vary lang siya as you go
But
up.
why would that be bad? Kasi, well, kung nakasanayan natin yung kahit anong
wala siyang ang tingin natin sa mga bata, walang mastery of minimum yung talagang basic skills. Kasi sa experience namin halimbawa, review ka ng review. Halimbawa, sa first year, tinuro mo na yung integers, halimbawa, ay gagamitin mo yan doon sa second year. Gagamitin mo yan sa isang topic doon sa second year. Re-reviewin mo na naman yung integers. Eh may mga bata na halimbawa hindi sila pumapasok noon, diniscuss yung integers. So hirap na hirap kang maghabol.
Pero kung
Nahabol
even under the old system, talagang hirap
Yeah.
na tayo sa math eh. So anong pwede kayang alternative kung
Baka tayo lang yun, Ami.
Mukhang sinubukan. Kaya tayo naging journalist.
Oo.
Kaya nga, paano, what an alternative kung hindi maganda yung spiral at hindi rin naman nag-work yun? Ano ang pwede?
And related
by the way,
related doon,
yung
Congresswoman,
science.
if you don't mind,
Yeah, by the way,
ikakabit ko lang din yung tanong ko, no? I mean, is it about method or is it about resources? Kasi parang, parang we've had, through many administrations, maraming mga pinapanukala na, palta natin itong strategy na to, o itong klaseng math ang gawin natin, or this is how it is. But is it really about method or is it about, more basic things like resources, both material and human?
Mahina lang talaga kami sa math.
There are a lot of factors, Roby, no? Not only the curriculum. You have mentioned about the resources. So, for example, yung nireklamo natin noon yung class size. So, dapat mas konti yung class size. So, meron tayong average na sinasabi ng DepEd ay 40 to 50 sa klase. Pero in reality, hindi ganon, lalong-lalo na sa mga urban areas. Number 2, syempre, yung mga teachers. Alam nyo ba, may mga teachers na ina-assign sa subject na hindi naman niya subject. Halimbawa, specialization or major. So, dapat yun tanggalin na ng DepEd yung ganong mga practices dahil kulang ng teacher. So, dapat na talaga tayong mag-venture into mastery of skills ng mga bata. At saka bawasan talaga kasi ang K-12, sabi nga ganon, we added another 2 years nga doon sa ating curriculum on basic education to decongest yung ating curriculum, pero hindi nangyayari yun. Hindi nangyari yung decongestion ng curriculum. Kung titignan niyo yung curriculum natin, talagang punong-puno pa. Tapos, not to say na marami pang sinasuggest yung mga congressmen na additional subject. So, kung ako yung tatanungin, so yung resources, yung talagang yung specialization ng teachers, dapat yun ang ituro ng teacher. Yung curriculum, baguhin yung spiral na yan. Ituro ng maayos yung yung mother tongue. Kami, hindi naman kami negative sa mother tongue. Mahalaga nga yung mother tongue kasi ito yung first language ng mga bata. Maituro lang ito ng maayos at magamit lang ang mother tongue ng maayos. Both in instructions and in language, okay kami doon. So, yun nga lang. Alam nyo ba, tinanggal din yung Philippine history sa high school. Nilagay lang yan sa elementary na tumututol din kami dyan. So, yun yung problema natin dyan. By the way, yung science, chapsuy method din yan. Marami nga nagrereklamo mga teacher. Di ba, yung first year natin, general science. Second year, biology. Third year, chemistry. Fourth year, physics. Ganon din ang ginawa parang sa math. A little of everything ng first year, second year, third year. Walang mastery yung mga bata. Kaya ako noon, bakit ako gusto kong magturo ng math? Kasi na-develop ko yung skills ko sa mathematics. Kaya nag-interest ako sa math. Parang yung
pero ako never na-develop yung skills ko sa algebra.
Siguro sa English naman kayo. Sa English siguro kayo ang languages.
Okay.
Wala talaga akong nakatandaan sa
Anyway.
So, yung resources, yung mga resources, curriculum, dapat baguhin yan, dagdagan ng budget, tapos so, syempre, mag-focus tayo sa mga mastery of the skills, yung important skills, yung mga international na mga test na ganyan, sabi ng DepEd, di ba, computer-based daw yun, kaya ang mga bata hindi raw marunong mag-computer, i-train natin yung mga bata sa computer.
Okay.
Okay.
Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro, maraming salamat po. for
Thank you,
joining us.
Thank
Congresswoman.
you,
And
Coco.
we
Salamat.
have to
Thank
let go
you.
of Congresswoman Castro because we do want to bring in a representative of the Department of Education. So joining us now is Education Undersecretary Nepomuceno Malaluan. Good evening, Yusik Nepo.
Hi, Yusek.
Good evening, Yusek.
Contest kami ni
Hi.
Luchi, ang master natin sa mathematics.
Yusek,
Okay.
okay. Anyway, Yusek Nepo, thank you again for being here. Ayun, sabi ni Secretary, the World Bank should apologize for, she feels that that report shamed us. She said, that's old data. It's 2019. I want to start with that because even if it were old data, after 2019 was 2020 and then 2021. See, may alam naman ako sa math. But after in 2020 and 2021, I mean, it was COVID, di ba? Nobody's fault. It's COVID. But we don't really expect that things actually improved in 2020 and 2021. So what really is the basis for being hurt here? I mean, to be perfectly frank, I don't think people, especially coming out of the PISA results a few years back, they really found anything new with what the World Bank said.
I think there's a misunderstanding of what the Secretary was pointing out with the report. Of course, we welcome all analysis. In fact, we are doing continuous analysis of the results of these international assessments, including PISA. We're mining the data to understand where the gaps are, why we perform that way. I think the point of the Secretary, and it is in her press statement, is the incompleteness of the World Bank report. Because she was saying it's all data in the sense that the World Bank did not articulate anything about what the Department of Education has been doing since the release of this study, even if the World Bank knows directly that we are doing things about it, and in fact, we're negotiating one loan with them on some of the things that will address this problem. And the other one is the lack of the historical context of this report. It's as though this results is it's just in this present time when this is a product of a long evolution of our educational system, of which the World Bank itself is directly involved throughout the years. And in fact, she mentioned the programs that have been supported by the World Bank to address quality since the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and so on. So it's as though it is within an arm's length and discussing only at this point. I think that was the point of the Secretary in her remarks to the World Bank report. We welcome the analysis, and the results of this analysis are open to all, available to all to study. And in fact, that was the reason why we participated in this international assessments. The World Bank itself welcomed this as a great opportunity to understand what the state of the education system in the Philippines. We participated in PISA only for the first time in 2018 since its inception in 2000. And it also acknowledged that we participated in teams after a 16 or so years break. And so
let me ask you, Yusek, were you surprised at the results? Were you surprised?
At the results? Frankly, no, because I think I've guested in your at the time that the PISA results
Yes.
came out in 2019. And in fact, that was the expectation. And as early as the beginning of the term of the Secretary, she has already flagged the quality of education as the major challenge. In fact, we call it the pivot from access to quality in terms of direction. And it is based on our own national assessments historically.
Yeah.
Anong mga changes yung sinasabi mo kumbaga sinabmit nyo na alam ng World Bank yan, na meron na kayong mga ini-implement na mga improvements or changes? Ano yun?
The first is we launched in 2019 the program called Sulong Ito Kalidad. The first one of that is the curriculum review. The results of the curriculum review are now already submitted to the Secretary. For example, some of the things that were mentioned about the congestion of the curriculum has been validated in this study, and this will result in a streamlining of the curriculum. There were certain prerequisites and subsequent that are missing in this curriculum and things like that. The issue of language, for example, is a the language of instruction is a deeply rooted issue, which is also noted by the World Bank. Teacher professional development is something that we are working with through our National Educators Academy of the Philippines transformation. They know it's ongoing, and in fact, one of the loan programs that is being negotiated with the World Bank is on teacher professional development, following the framework that we are starting with our own internal program. So, these things naman should also be articulated. It's not as though without giving their report a balance, considering that they are a development partner of the Department of Education, we felt was unfair, and that was what the Secretary was responding.
Yusek, nabanggit niyo yung curriculum changes. We just talked to Congresswoman Franz Castro, and she said, bumalik daw kayo sa chop suey. Ay, nag-introduce kayo ng chop suey na yung spiral, in math and in teaching math and sciences. I hope you were listening. Kasi sabi niya, mas nahihirapan daw ang mga estudyante to understand the concepts kung ganon. Na hodgepodge.
There are different positions on this, and I think it was Father Ben Nebres in a hearing just a couple of days ago that was making the same observation on the discipline approach versus the spiral approach. The spiral approach only means that you introduce to the students at an early level the concepts in simpler terms, and you repeat these concepts over the course of their student life in more complex terms. But it's the same subject matter that's taught in a spiral progression, as they call it. I'm not a curriculum expert myself. I'm a lawyer and an economist, but there's a debate among the educators themselves. But when we came, this was the model of the K-12 curriculum, and that's why the curriculum review was implemented. It can be reopened, that issue, and we'll see the learnings from the field in its implementation. And so there are noted academics on both sides of the fence. And so that's part of the evolution, as we mentioned, of us taking the more elusive aspect of education now. Because, access is one thing, because it's easier. You open a new school, you put up a new school building, but when we talk about quality, it's a totally different ballgame. In other words, not all educational system will produce the kind of quality that you want. It's more than having a teacher, having a classroom, getting the students enrolled in the classes. And the standards of quality also changes over time. And this is one learning that we are able to get from these international assessments. We're able to see the standards at the international level.
Yusek,
we probably didn't know.
Yusek, precisely on those standards, I want to go back to the PISA results from 2019. I do think the administration and the incumbent education officers deserve credit just for the courage, to go through the PISA process and for once and for all have our baseline, knowing full well that it was not going to be flattering from the very start. So I want to have a forward-looking question to end this program with. 2022 na next year, See, I'm continuing with my math. So 2020 next year, election na. Regardless who wins, of course, after the PISA results and we now have the baseline. Of course, any reasonable person knew that not everything is going to change within 1 year, maybe even 2 years. But with a fresh slate, whoever wins in 2022, 6 years, what is possible for the next administration over the next 6 years? What can be a clear goal in terms of our rankings, in terms of our grades in the PISA results by where does that put us? 2028.
Well, as you can very well know, it will take time. You said that it took courage, and we will have that same courage to continue, let's say, with the 2022 round. Will it have the impact that an overnight? It will not. I mean, the countries that joined PISA ahead of us knows that it is difficult to move the needle on matters of quality. But there are things that we're doing. For example, we have a professional development program on assessment with focus on PISA that we're about to roll out very soon in DepEd. And the first thing you do is look at the novelty of this exam and try to remove that novelty with respect to our own teachers and learners, and see, in other words, you remove the things that might have
Handicapped us.
still distorted the kind of showing, but it will take time for us to evolve. And we've unsettled everyone. That was the purpose of joining this PISA, and but we have to work on this together moving forward. And I would want to have an opportunity to discuss more deeply with you the initiatives that we are doing, and because these are, we believe, the long-lasting reforms that will move us forward. But it's going to be a long journey to not regain, but to have address the challenge of quality, which I think it's not as though it fell. It is what it is for a long period of time.
Okay. And we can guarantee you that, we can assure you of that. We will devote more time to talk about our education system, the investments that are taking place and that are further needed. In the meantime, we've run out of time. Maraming salamat po, Education Undersecretary Nepo Malaluan.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Yusek. Thank you very much. We'll do our spiral progressions in the next episode.
Yeah. We'll keep repeating these concepts. In the meantime, that will be all for this special edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and we are One News.